Hello, everybody, and welcome to Into Fly Fishing. Today, we're going to take a look at traveling to one of my favorite fly fishing destinations in the whole world, Xcalac, Mexico. So, let's go. All right, folks, thanks for being here. This is Into Fly Fishing. I'm Nick Jovanovich. I've been a fly fishing guide in Southwest Montana for the last 15 years. I've also been fly fishing personally for myself for over 35 years of my life. So, I've seen a lot of stuff out on the water. I've traveled to a lot of places, and it's been just part of who I am for a very, very long time. So I want to talk to you about one of my favorite places to go fly fishing, and that is Xcalac, Mexico. Now, before we get into it, though, if we could just take a moment to have you like this video and follow us on this channel, it would help out a big time deal. Anyway, yes, it helps out huge. We love doing these videos for you. We want to keep doing them, but it does take a lot of time, money, and effort to do them. We want to keep doing them for you. So the more you can help us out by liking and following, the more videos we can bring to you. We really, really, really appreciate you. Now, let's get on with this segment. Now, as far as saltwater fishing goes, I have been to quite a few places, and there's some similarities and there's some differences between said places. And as a lifelong trout bum and longtime trout guide, fly fishing saltwater is one of my favorite things to do. It's a totally different game. It's hunting versus fishing. It's just different, and I love it, and I can't wait to do it. Again, I wake up every morning, and I'm like, when are we planning our next saltwater trip? Xcalac, Mexico has been on many people's bucket list for a long time. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. If you've seen it or heard it or seen it printed, it's actually spelled with an X, which seems interesting, but there's some native influences from the language down there. Anyhow, it's pronounced Xcalac, Mexico. And it used to be kind of hard to get to, and hard's always relative. We want to go the extra mile or miles if we need to go for great fishing. But you used to have to fly to Cancun and then rent a car and then drive like 5.5+ hours down to the border of Mexico and Belize. It's literally like this close to Belize. We see Belize when we go fishing down there. Now, Tulum, which is a little bit south of Cancun, has built their own airport. The area has exploded. Cancun's huge and crazy and bustling. Tulum's airport is beautiful. It's small. It's easy to navigate. In fact, it's so new that when I was just there, the only thing you could do was get through security, get on a plane, and you might be able to buy a few things in the gift shop. That's all that was open. There's all these restaurants, including Starbucks and other big names that are coming soon, and they were all under construction. But what happens now is that you cut hours off of your drive to get down to Xcalac. Now the drive has become 3.5 hours. So you fly into Tulum. Prices are great on flights right now because it's new. And just like everything else, they'll go up, they'll go down. You got to watch. You got to know the seasons you're wanting to go fish. You can rent a car from one of the big companies there and drive yourself down to Xcalac. Now, another thing that I had heard about the X, we call it the X, is that the road is not the greatest. And I didn't find that to be true. It's a paved road. It's maintained. It's not the greatest always, but they do maintain it, and it's not a problem at all. You do want to make sure that you have your international plan activated before you go down. That make it easier on your cell phone. You plug it into your map and you won't get lost. Now, you'll be in and out of cell phone range. You're driving through open country, of course. And by the time you pass the last town before Xcalac is called Mahual, and that's, you're kind of inland when you're driving from Tulum. Once you get out to the coast, you're near the town of Mahual, you turn south, okay? And what you got to know is that beyond that, you're not going to get much for cell phone coverage. You will have Wi-Fi opportunities down there in Xcalac, and most of the places, the restaurants and hotels are going to have that for you. But your communication, as far as we found on our U.S. major network carriers, once we passed Mahual, we didn't have much service at all, no service whatsoever. The other thing about Mahual is that it's your last opportunity for gas. So what I recommend is, as you're going down from the airport, you're heading to Xcalac, stop, fill up your tank. That way you don't have to worry when you're down at Xcalac. And then you can stop and fill it up on your way back to the airport as well. There's a couple of small towns if you want a full tank by the time you get back to the airport to avoid that nominal little fee they add on to fill up the tank for you. But I always find that the convenience is worth the price personally, but that's up to you. Now, once you get to Xcalac, you're going to find that it is a small town in Mexico, okay? It doesn't have a ton of amenities. It's got some restaurants, it's got some shops, it's got some places to stay, of course, but it's not a resort type town. It doesn't have all these amenities, okay? It's dirt streets, it's very, very low key, and it's wonderful. It's the reason that I love it so much. It's very similar to Punta Allen, which is what we used to fish north of there. So we'd fly into Cancun and take the 3+ hour drive out peninsula from Cancun to Punta Allen, which is well north of Xcalac. But again, like I said, the new airport, we got down to Xcalac much easier. It was worth it. Similar vibes, if you ask me. Dirt streets, wonderful people, very, very friendly. When you get there, there are some small shops to buy food. You can buy your beer, you can buy your water, and have it with you in your room. You're going to want to do that, of course, but there are some really great little restaurants, and you will find them. One of my favorites was actually right by the pier, right in town, okay? You're not going to miss it. It's an outdoor covered patio right off the water, right next to the pier, and the people were wonderful. The owner was wonderful. The people that worked there were wonderful. It's some of the best food that we found. Now, going north of town, you will find some great amenities with some fly fishing specific places like the X Flats, which is very well known. You've got great guides. They've got great amenities. There's Costa de Cocos, which is pretty decent. We stopped in there for lunch. They've got some fun bungalows and such to stay in. And then XOTF, Xcalac on the Fly. We fished with those guys. They've got a really cool setup just beyond the other two, just north of town. And great places to stay, great amenities, really great guides. Speaking of guiding, a guide trip down there at the time of this video is only $350. With that into perspective, let's talk about a road trip in Montana for trout. You're paying $600, $650. It might be even more by the time you watch this video. Alaska, much more, okay, right? But it's all relative. $350 for a whole day, 2 guides. You get your own guide. You have a helper to help you manage your line and spot fish. You get your lunch. They show you a ton of water. And it's really one of the most efficient ways to cover water and find fish. I never shy away from hiring a guide, okay? But I do like DIY fishing as well. And I have found that Xcalac is one of my favorite places to go for DIY fishing too. I never go just do a DIY. I love fishing with guides and I love walking. As a guide myself, I love being in the boat. I love going down the river. I love helping clients find fish, but I'm in a boat all the time. It's really nice sometimes to just step outside the boat, do a walk wade trip. It's kind of the same idea down there too. I don't always like being cooped up at a boat. Sometimes I just want to walk. The whole windward side, the beach side of Xcalac is just gorgeous flats. You could drive basically down toward Belize or back up to Mahual on the dirt road that's just off the beach and find grassy flats or sandy opens that you can wade for days and days and days and days. Now, of course, you have to find the fish, and it's a lot of expansive water, but it is doable. And if it's super windy on that beach side, that windward side, well, you've got the leeward side, which is a giant lagoon. And the road in can be a little bit overgrown, a dirt road that goes past the airport out there, and it's a military airport. You can't fly in there. I wouldn't try, even if you have your own plane. But you can drive out to the lagoon, and you can get out of the wind and fish that lagoon. Very, very fishy spot. The problem with wading the lagoon is it's kind of mucky on the bottom. It's sandy, silty. You'll find places that's kind of easy. You'll find places where your boots get stuck in the mud. And there's a lot of little coral heads all over the place too, which you don't really want to walk on. And if you accidentally slip on one, you could end up cutting your hand, which that did definitely happen to one of the guys that was on the trip with us. But it's still doable and it's still fishy. Either the windward or the leeward, you could rent a stand-up paddleboard or a kayak from somebody in town, and that would give you a little bit more access. But of course, you want to be careful and know what you're doing before you get yourself in trouble out there, and just play it cautious. But that can open up a lot of opportunity for you as well. Now, the last thing to talk about is some of the equipment. The equipment that you want to bring, you're targeting mostly bonefish, permit, and tarpon. And if you're like me, you're permit crazy. That's what you're going for. They're so hard to get to eat a fly, and they're the most fun when they actually eat it. Bonefish are really, really they just pull hard. They're very sporty. They're a little easier to catch. And it's funny you say that, and then you can't get a bonefish to eat for days, and you just are like, why did I make fun of bonefish? I'm so dumb. And then you have the tarpon, which are crazy and super fun to catch because they're giant and they're just acrobatic and nuts. Anyhow, what I usually bring is an 8 weight, a 9 weight, and then something for tarpon in like a 10, 11 weight. I prefer the 11 because it's a little bit bigger for some of the big tarpon. It can still handle some of the smaller tarpon without being, too much of a weapon. So for me personally, I got 8, 9, and 11. Now, you could say if you want to bring more gear, throw in a 7 weight for small bonefish. You can walk those beaches, and in between the turtle grass and the actual shoreline, find a whole bunch of small bonefish to throw at as well. You can find some really great jack fishing out there, and jacks don't get the notoriety that some of the other 3 fish do, but man, jack can really, really pull hard. For the lines, tropical specific floating is your best bet. You're going to be fishing like 6 inches to 6 feet of water. And so if you can only bring 1 line per rod, your standard tropical floating is going to be the best bet. Now, if you're a gear guy or gal and you just want to load up on a little bit more, you can find some clear sink tips in different rates. A slow or intermediate sink tip can help target some of the deeper stuff for you, but you can also overcome that by just using a heavier fly as well, which we'll talk about in just a moment. For your leaders and tippets, I highly recommend bringing using fluorocarbon. You want anything from 50, 60 pounds for tarpon, all the way down to that 20, 16, 12-ish range for permit, that 16, 12, and 10-ish range for bonefish. It's great to have different shock tippets as well, or shock leaders for tarpon, because they do have this amazing power to them, and a shock leader and shock tippet just kind of help absorb some of that that impact, that sudden stretch in the line. And also bring some toothy critter material. Now that could be a hardened line for targeting barracuda, or it could be just a stainless steel little clip-on piece of leader that goes right on your fluorocarbon leader, so you can hang your barracuda fly. But those things are super, super teethy. Teethy? How about toothy? Very toothy. And you'll probably see some hovering about out there when you're searching for bonefish, permit, and tarpon. Now, as far as your fly box is concerned, you're going to want to bring a variation, of course. Smaller flies specific to bonefish and shallow water. You're going to want to have some bonefish puffs, some bonefish bitters. You can even fish the slightly larger size bitters to spooky permit, say like on the lagoon side where there's not as much wave, it's very calm, and everything's really, really kind of light, and you got to be a little delicate. Then you can move up into something like a spawning shrimp. You got to have some spawning shrimp, and I love pink or tan spawning shrimp, and vary those up as well, because on the bottom of those spawning shrimp, you're going to have certain spawning shrimp that have an orange wrap underneath or a pink wrap underneath, and also you can get them that have a chartreuse wrap right behind the eyelet of the hook, between the eyelet and the head. Those little variations can really help you out. I would also recommend bringing some different size and color squimp, pinks, reds, off-white kind of crystal, and a hot dog, which is a funny name, but it's because it's tan with yellow barbell eyes. Those squimp will get you into fish. Now, disclaimer on this next one, it's a naughty word in a specific language. We won't get into it, but it's called the striped kukin. The kukin is a great fly down there. That's all I'm going to say about that. Bring some kukin and we're done. Moving on. Now, of course, for tarpon, you're going to want to have some different streamer type flies. Okay, saltwater specific streamers, the tarpon toad and the tarpon fly are 2 great ones to have, but really anything that looks like the bait fish that they're going to have down there. Okay, and that'll work for barracuda as well. Those guides down there really prefer black and purple. I would vary it up with black and red, white and red, black and blue, and white and blue as well. And if you want to get one of those fluorescent green needlefish, if you're going to go after the barracuda, it's a good idea to have one of those on. You can just leave your stainless steel wire tippet attached to that needlefish. And if you're fishing tarpon, you see a barracuda, it's easy, pop fly off, hook your needlefish on, throw it out, get yourself a big barracuda. You can fish any of those shrimp, squid patterns for permit out there as well. They will eat anything like that that's placed and presented well, but sometimes they just want crabs. They are crab-eating machines, and there are a few patterns that I really highly recommend. Now, you have different variations of these, of course, but my favorite one to have on me is going to be the raghead crab. And different variations of raghead crab, small, large, tan, all of it doesn't really work for me as well out there, but vary the legs to the color of the legs. Ragheads that have pink tip legs or orange tip legs, and bring some that don't have those. Strong arm crabs really work. It's funny because it's got that one big long claw hanging out there, usually in a brown or a tan as well. Now, when you're fishing different crabs or squimps or even bonefish bitters, you want to pay attention to the weight. You got to have varying weights. For calm, shallow water, you want a lightweight fly. Look for bead chain as far as the eyes on those things and the weight. If you're fishing deeper water, like 4, 5, even 6 feet, use the heavy dumbbell or barbell eyes to get your fly down faster, and it gives a little bit more plot to the fly as well. And folks, I know that's a lot of information, but at least you have the gist of it. I love Xcalak. It's one of my favorite places to go. It's much more accessible now. A couple last tips. Make sure you go get some pesos at your local bank before you get on the plane. Okay, like a week before, call up your bank or stop by. It'll save you a lot of money. Okay, a lot of places down there are going to take your Visa, your Discover, your American Express card, but some of the local places and some of the small shops, it's just a lot easier to have pesos, and some of them won't take cards anyway. At the airports or when you get to Mexico, the exchange rates, it's just too much. They take too much money away from you. Save a lot of time and energy and effort and just get it at your local bank. Let your service provider, your cell phone service provider, know that you're going to be traveling internationally. Make sure it works before you go. You can also download a digital card. So you don't have to change your actual card in your phone. It's a digital card to allow you to use your cell phone internationally. And I have that installed as an app on my phone already as a backup, just in case something goes awry. Now, we need to talk about the park pass that's required to fish and recreate this area. This area is a big reef system. It's a barrier reef system that runs basically the length of Belize up into this part of Mexico. And I believe it's the second biggest barrier reef behind the Great Barrier Reef of Australia. Anyhow, you are required to buy this wristband that you will wear, and that money that you use to buy it goes into a fund to help protect the area and perpetuate its use. So you buy this wristband. If you're DIY, go to the parks office over by the soccer field to get yourself a wristband, and you got to wear this thing. If you're fishing with an outfitter, they will hook you up with this. It's usually included in the price, but just make sure you talk to your outfitter and make sure you're squared away on that. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I hope you like this video. And if you do, please give us a like, give us a follow. It goes a long way. We really, really, really appreciate it. We can keep doing this for you. Once again, I'm Nick Jovanovich, and this is Into Fly Fishing. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.